Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Week 1 on DraftKings is almost here. We're going to take a look at some DFS NFL running backs for you, going all the way from the top of the salary sheet all the way to the bottom. Do me a favor. I know that a lot of you guys are new here. I know that a lot of you guys are coming back from previous seasons on the channel. Welcome back to everybody who's coming back. Welcome in to everybody who's new. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave me an algorithm helping reply right down below. And why don't we just get right to it? Let's go.
He's a legend.
If you guys haven't already, I need you to go over and check out the link down below in the pinned comment about rotowire.com. They are giving you a 10-day subscription. Absolutely free. Guys, I cannot beat free. You get to use all of their tools in terms of your fantasy drafts, your friends and family leagues, your best ball leagues, your high dollar leagues if you're that type of player in those national highly funded leagues and NFFC and whatnot. They have all the tools that you need for that, as well as daily fantasy MLB, soccer if you're playing European soccer, or even the Canadian Football League. They have projections for all of these things. Go check them out. I can't do any better than free. Help out the channels and the companies that help us out here on the stream. Link right down below, rotowire.com/smizzle. Go give them a chance. Go give them a try. See if you like it. Moving right in to the running backs. Oh, look, our old friend Christian McCaffrey is right on top of the list. 9,500. If there's one thing that we kind of have to talk about early in the NFL season, it's that week 1 pricing is always going to be somewhat, let's just say, friendly, right? A lot of people use the term soft, squishy, pillowy. Friendly is kind of how that is, right? You can fit whoever you want in week 1. There's so much value at wide receiver. There's a lot of value at running back as well on this slate that you can get yourself. If you're running cash game lineups, you can play your 3 running backs, probably that are those 5-box running backs that we talked about, 20 plus touches, involvement in the passing game, inside the 5 touches, all those sorts of things that we want, right? And Christian McCaffrey leads the way. I do believe that a lot of people are going to be scared off of Christian McCaffrey. They haven't been in season long, as he is the 1.01, but people are going to say, well, now that there's a salary attached to him, he was injured last year, I want to wait and see. It's, the coaching staff isn't the same as it was there under Ron Rivera. We don't know. It's a different quarterback. Well, here's the games that he played last year, and he was the same old Christian McCaffrey. I'm expecting the same old Christian McCaffrey this season as well. 9,500 in a slate where there's enough value in the mid-range everywhere else to be able to afford him. If you're playing cash games, him and or Dalvin Cook are probably a must. In tournaments, you're playing percentages and you're playing correlations and you're doing all those other things. So different decisions, obviously. Dalvin Cook at 9,100, probably going to be the highest trafficked high dollar running back on the slate with as much volume as he got last year. The matchup against Cincinnati, they are favored in this game. Offense is supposed to be moving, has involvement in the passing game, scores a ton of touchdowns. He's everything. He is the engine that makes this Minnesota Vikings offense go. As good as Thielen and Jefferson are on the outside, and as, capable as Kirk Cousins has been, especially in navigating this offense since he moved here, or back when he was on the WFT, moving that offense up and down the field. Dalvin Cook right now is really the guy that makes this offense go. And at 9,100, you get a $400 discount. He is going to be a very popular player in week 1. Derrick Henry, it's not D-Hember yet, but he does play Arizona. What we aren't going to get from Derrick Henry is predictable volume in the passing game. I've talked about it before. All we want is 4 targets a game. If he gets 4 targets a game, he is the 1.01. More than likely every year, with as durable as he's been, the size speed combination. There is worry this season that because of how much volume he's seen on the ground and how many hits that body has taken over the last couple of years, with as many touches as he gets on the ground, right? Like that's a lot of carries. That's a lot of carries over the course of a season. So there's people who are predicting that his body is eventually going to break down. He's going to stop being on the right side of variance in terms of the injury bug. And like, you just can't take that many hits at the NFL level. Well, when he gets there, we'll know. And the beauty of daily fantasy NFL versus season-long NFL is that when it happens, you don't have to roster him anymore past then. Until it happens, I'm going to keep trying to find ways to play Derrick Henry, especially in games where there is high-powered offense expected, right? Yeah, a lot of scoring expected. I think that Arizona is going to force the issue. Tennessee at home in this game and favored with a total over 50, 51.5 to be exact. And there's really three places on this offense where the ball is going to go more often than not. It's A, Derrick Henry, B, A.J. Brown, and C, Julio Jones. Those are the three prongs on this offense that are going to get the most volume in terms of carries and or targets. Hopefully they target Derrick Henry a little bit more this season than they have in years past. 8,800, if you want to go for him, he's going to be less popular than pretty much any of the other top four salaried running backs on the slate, and I expect Alvin Kamara to be extremely popular. We highlighted on stream yesterday how many more fantasy points per game Alvin Kamara sees and how much more volume he gets, specifically in the passing game, in games where Michael Thomas has missed the last two seasons. You're talking about predictably like 8 to 10 targets every single game that Michael Thomas has been out. Is there going to be a quarterback change? Yes, Drew Brees is not in the league anymore, so it's going to be a different quarterback. But this offense can still go, and we know that the coaching staff is still intact and that Alvin Kamara is the guy, albeit usually not going to be a running back who carries the ball 20 plus times, but a carry is not as valuable as a target. Every target he gets is worth 2.8 carries of the football. So if you tell me that Alvin Kamara is going to get 12 carries in a game, but get 9 targets in a game, that's way more valuable than somebody who's going to get 23, 24 carries, but no targets. Always target those pass catching running backs, especially when they get the inside the 5 love that of Alvin Kamara does get. So there's still the similar amount of touchdown upside as those heavy carry guys, but he carries with him so much upside in the passing game. And at 900 less than Christian McCaffrey in a game against Green Bay, where the total is 50, they are playing in the dome and are underdogs. They're going to have to throw the ball to stay competitive with that Green Bay offense. So I kind of feel like Alvin Kamara is going to carry a lower number than possibly he should in week 1. Jonathan Taylor, at least Wentz is back, right? So we're not dealing with an unknown at quarterback. Taylor's going to get an awful lot of volume. I do think that there's going to be steady volume from him in the passing game, but there is a red flag here for his pass game usage, is that Phillip Rivers was one of the highest percent of his attempts go to running backs, quarterbacks in the league. He threw a lot to his running backs forever. And now that's not the case. And Carson Wentz has not been a guy who has thrown the ball a lot to his running backs. And while that may be schemed into the offense, and hopefully it is, for Jonathan Taylor to be a 4, maybe 4.5 target guy, even with the presence of Nyheim Hines, he's just too explosive, just too big, just too strong to be ignored. And we see that run in that he had with 1 touchdown in his final 5 games, including the playoff game against Buffalo, that he has a really high floor, also has a good ceiling, especially if those targets come up to where they were at the second half of the year, as opposed to kind of the first half of the season. So Jonathan Taylor is kind of a wait and see question mark, priced at 8,000. We have to see if Barkley is going to play week 1. We just don't know. We'll find out. Nick Chubb, no usage in the passing game. We know that. We know he's capable of doing it, right? Like, if they give him that usage, this is one of the most talented backs in the league just on running back talent, tackle breaking, speed, strength, yards after first contact, all of those sorts of things. Nick Chubb is right there in that top tier along with Alvin Kamara. He comes in at 7,200 because he's still splitting time with Kareem Hunt. You would have to think that, we want to avoid running backs typically who are on the road. We want to avoid running backs who are reliant on carries, 100 yards, and touchdowns, and aren't really the guy who is involved in the passing game. This game does have a really high total, trying to find it on my sheet, of 53.5, but Kansas City favored by almost a touchdown in this game. So you'd have to write a game script for yourself when building a lineup that Cleveland is going to get out to an early lead and try and play ball control, and their defense is going to do a number on that Kansas City offensive line. Their defensive line certainly extremely talented, and is going to lead to maybe some turnovers or inefficiency for Kansas City, and is going to be playing from ahead, and therefore Nick Chubb will get extra love, extra usage. Also one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. Top 3 for sure. Don't fact check me. I just know he's really, really, really good. I don't have the stat in front of me. On long runs over 25 yards. One of the leaders in the league the last 2 seasons. So Nick Chubb definitely has game-breaking, big playability, but he's going to have to get it done with a touchdown or 2 because he's probably not going to get it done for you through the air, and isn't going to be an 80% guy because of the presence of Kareem Hunt. Austin Ekeler going up against this Washington defense, which looks to be extremely good. But the key for Ekeler is exactly what I talked about with Alvin Kamara. Not going to be a 20 carry guy, but these targets that he gets, 7 targets, 9 targets, 9 targets, 16, 11. There's only a few places in this offense where the ball goes repeatedly, and it is to Austin Ekeler through the air. Now, if that changes with the new staff that they have, fine, but I don't think that you're going to take somebody who has a specific skill set that actually aids your offense in matriculating the ball down the football field and suddenly turn them into a ground and pound guy between the tackles and all that sort of thing. Same thing happened with Christian McCaffrey. Well, Ron Rivera's not there anymore. Maybe they're not going to throw him the ball. They totally throw him the ball. So 7,000. I think that I prefer Austin Ekeler at his price to Nick Chubb at his price because of the floor ceiling combo. Nick Chubb has a wider gap between his potential ceiling game, which would be like 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, to Austin Ekeler has a similar ceiling, but a much higher floor, but also should carry with him a higher percentage in tournaments. Aaron Jones has not played in the preseason, and for good reason. They are favored. They are at home. The one thing that I really like about Aaron Jones over the course of this season, this is not going to materialize necessarily in week 1, but the Green Bay Packers had an irrational number of touchdown passes last year from the 1-yard line. And as efficient as Aaron Jones has been with inside the 5 carries, one of the best short yardage backs in the league for the last couple of seasons, you would have to think that that number is going to normalize a little bit more unless Aaron Rodgers just decides, you know what, every time we get to the 1, they call a run play, I'm audibling out of it because I know better than them because I'm Aaron Rodgers. So to me, Aaron Jones is kind of that guy. Who could see an uptick in touchdowns once again and get to maybe 15 or 16 or 17 as opposed to 12 when they basically threw it from the layup position at the 1-yard line. We saw Devontae Adams have a ton of touchdowns last year. So maybe some of those go to A.J. Dillon, but Aaron Jones is the lead guy, at least to this point. Edwards-Helaire, they said that ankle injury that he had is not super serious. We're going to have to monitor this going into week 1. If he's gone, there's clear value plays on Kansas City at running back. We just don't know right now, so we're in kind of a holding pattern with CEH. Myles Sanders, good inclusion in the passing game. Great offensive environment here against Atlanta and only 6,500. You know that he is involved in the passing game. We're going to have to see how much Jalen Hurts is going to throw the ball, however, because if he only throws it 25 times a game, much less upside for all of the pieces in that passing offense for Philadelphia than if he throws it 35 plus times a game. So this game has a total of 48, but Atlanta's an up-pace team, and Philly does project also to be a down-pace team, so it's going to be dependent on which team enforces their will upon the other. With as much as running quarterbacks will run the ball, and Philadelphia, a team that does kind of want to run the football a lot, teams that average an awful lot of passes tend to get more plays. Baltimore, they're a team that runs the ball a ton. They get less plays. Other teams get less plays against them. So efficiency is key. They also don't throw the ball a ton because the clock's always moving, and they usually are playing from ahead, and they don't have to. So if Philadelphia is playing from ahead, don't expect a lot of pass attempts, and that's going to hurt somebody like Myles Sanders in the passing game. So, I mean, even though he can be or should be a 5-6 target a game guy, if there's only 25, 26 targets to go around between him and Smith and Rager and Ertz and Goddard, that's 5 dudes splitting up 25 targets, maybe 30 targets on a good day if they're winning games. So you have to hope that they're going to be playing from behind in a lot of these situations for Myles Sanders to actualize his potential ceiling. We saw Travis Etienne with a midfoot sprain last night against the Saints. He left that game and was wearing a boot after the game. Again, a situation to monitor. If he's out, James Robinson's workload should go through the roof, so we'll monitor that as we get into week 1. Myles Gaskin, Everybody liked Myles Gaskin, then everybody hated Myles Gaskin. Now everybody loves Myles Gaskin again. We've been kind of consistent on the way that we feel about Myles Gaskin, and if he is somebody who's going to get 16, 17 plus touches with the amount of use that he got in the passing game last year in the games that he was healthy, 6,000 does seem fair, if not too cheap against this New England defense. Now, this could be a slower pace game. I think that Gaskin makes for a good GPP play because of the difference between his floor and his ceiling. I definitely expect this Miami offense to take a major step forward this year with Tua a year further away from that hip injury. He's looked excellent in the preseason. They added 2 difference makers on the outside, albeit one of them is not going to be playing in week 1 with Will Fuller still serving his suspension, but they still have Jalen Waddle. They still have Gesicki. They still have Devontae Parker, and Myles Gaskin is going to be the guy that you're not going to pack the box against. So Gaskin going to run all season long against really light boxes when he is on the field to run the ball. He is shifty enough to make moves and get into the second layer of the defense, and they have not pulled him when they get close. So Myles Gaskin kind of flying under the radar, and people with that, again, that's silly wait and see. I want to wait and see what they're going to do with Myles Gaskin. By the time you've waited and seen, the opportunity has left. So you kind of have to make a decision, and there is no better time in the daily fantasy season to be contrarian than in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. If you have a play or a player that you like, obviously go for that guy, even if everybody else is telling you it's a stupid play. If you can rationalize and reason why you think this guy's going to get the volume or score a lot of points, and there's 2% on that guy, great. A couple of seasons ago, maybe 4 seasons ago, DeMarco Murray on the Cowboys. The Cowboys were trash. Their defense was trash. They were going to get stomped all the time. And so nobody was on DeMarco Murray either in drafts, and nobody was definitely on in the first 3 weeks of the season. And he put up a year where he touched the ball like 420 times. And if you were on him early, you had him at less than 5% pretty much every single week the first month. And you made an awful lot of money in DFS. So you don't always have to go where the crowd is telling you to go, especially early in the season. Joe Mixon is somebody I expect to get an awful lot of volume this season. I've mentioned how much I like Antonio Gibson. I still really like Antonio Gibson. But Joe Mixon does have something that Antonio Gibson does not have, and Rich Rebar kind of encapsulated all of it. We always wanted Joe Mixon to be a thing. The guy that was going to get 25 touches, that was going to be included in the passing game a lot, and he was last year in the games that he was healthy, especially after they stopped the Gio Bernard experiment the first 3 weeks, where they're just throwing the ball to Gio. They finally started putting Mixon in on those passing downs and keeping him on the field for 2-minute drills, which led to these monstrous volume numbers in weeks 4 and 5. And then he finally got injured after that week 6 game. In the weeks that he is healthy, they don't have anybody else, with Gio moving on to Tampa Bay. And now Mixon is the one guy who has finally stepped into that volume role. And while we want Antonio Gibson to be that guy, has Joe Mixon finally become the guy that we always wanted Joe Mixon to be? And now we want Antonio Gibson to be that guy, but it's really Joe Mixon is that guy right now. It's going to be interesting to find out this year. I'm betting on Joe Mixon to have a ton of volume. That's all I can predict. That is the most valuable thing. He is going to be involved in the passing game a lot, and I think that this could be the cheapest that we see Joe Mixon this year. I think that he's probably a $7,000 to $7,500 running back sooner rather than later on DraftKings. And Najee Harris also going to get a lot of volume. Love this kid's talent coming out of Alabama, but going into Buffalo as big underdogs, 7-point underdogs, albeit a high scoring expectation game. 50.5 is the total here. So there will be touchdowns to be scored. And if there is a pass interference in the end zone, you'd have to think that Najee Harris has easy touchdown upside here with any, or should carry any of the carries inside the 5, unless they run some of those jet sweeps to chase Claypool like they did on last year's version of the Steelers. So Najee Harris just kind of is what he is. Chris Carson, also a good play at 5,900, but going into Indy against that front 7, gives me a little bit of pause. Antonio Gibson, just spoke about how much I like Antonio Gibson. The preseason has shown us that he will be in on more passing downs, but he has not been in on most of the third downs. That role is still belongs to JD McKissic. Hopefully he can get those 4+ targets a game. We know how good he is potentially in the passing game, but Washington has not utilized him in that role last season, and also not 100% of the time this preseason. They are throwing him the ball more. this preseason than they did at any point in games last season based on first team usage with Fitzmagic under center. So there is hope here that he's going to have a lot more volume in the passing game. What we need to see is him not come off the field in 2-minute drill. This is what happened last year because of how poor his pass blocking was. So if his pass blocking grade on PFF can come up, he will see the field an awful lot more on 2-minute drill, on 3rd and longs and things like that, where he can be the weapon that we all want and need him to be. But at 5,900, that price seems entirely too cheap considering the situation. At home against this Chargers defense, this could be a sneaky shootout with a total only at 44.5. People are not looking in this direction in terms of their stacks or their game stacks. And Antonio Gibson does strike out as a good value for the 5,900 cost, at least to me. We're going to have to wait and see about San Francisco, who is the running back that's going to be the lead guy. There's a lot of talk that, well, you know, I like Sermon more. Sermon has the higher ADP. Not me. I'm just quoting people that I read and listen to. But, like, if they're not playing him in the preseason, that typically means that they know what they got and they're going to run this dude when the season comes. Now, eventually, as the season goes on, if Trey Sermon becomes the guy, then great. Raheem Mostert has had injury problems in the past. He's a 29-year-old running back who's spent the first part of his career as a special teams guy, but he's extremely fast, extremely big, and extremely strong on an offense that predicts to be very, very efficient at moving the football, and Detroit, who is going to be inefficient at stopping people from moving the football. San Francisco is a 7.5-point favorite in the Motor City. And I kind of feel like Mostert is going to be exceptionally overlooked here in week 1. So he's somebody that I want to monitor and as the week goes on, as the content week for week 1 moves along. Because to me, I want to see projected ownership numbers, rostered numbers in tournaments. Because if he's going to be under 5% or under 10%, he might be that tournament winning running back, even though you're not going to get a lot of usage in the passing game. Lower floor than the other running backs that are priced a little bit higher. But if you're trading off leverage on tournament percentage for upside, 100 yards and 2 touchdowns is certainly something that's in Raheem Mostert's locker in week 1 if he gets 17 or 18 plus carries with the football. There is risk, there is a low floor, but as a tournament play, depending on what the projectable percentage is, and all those other running backs I've named, there's so much value that it's not like, well, we're forced into Mostert at 5,800. He might be one of the best contrarian plays on the entire list in week 1. Kareem Hunt, we talked about him. Mike Davis going to see a lot of volume in Atlanta, going up against Philly. Philly's been pretty good over the years at stopping running backs. We're going to have to see how Atlanta rolls out Mike Davis. He does pop as a very good value for week 1. Now we're kind of getting into the other guys. Damien Harris is not going to catch the football. That's not going to be his job on this team. That still and will always belong to James White. Even when he's 60 years old, he's going to be the pass catching guy. Harris could be the touchdown guy, could carry the ball an awful lot. This Miami defense is really good. I'm probably in a void for week 1 there. Lot up in the air with the Jets running backs. If I can find the Jets on the list. So we don't know if Tevin Coleman's going to be the guy. It appears that Michael Carter is not going to be the guy, right? At least not early in the season. As the season moves along, he might move into being the guy, but we don't know. We don't know if Ty Johnson's going to be the guy. So I don't know what to tell you a week and a half out, you know, from when lineups actually lock. We will have more on this as the content week for week 1 moves along, but right now I just don't have it for you. Those are the 3 guys to watch. All 3 are exceptionally cheap. Johnson at 4,400, Carter at 4,000, and Tevin Coleman under 5,000 himself. As we've said, there's a ton of value plays on this slate at both wide receiver and running back, so it's not something that you have to like stress over. Etienne was extremely cheap, but Chad is informing you there was a Liz Frank injury. Yeah, that's came back negative. So not a Liz Frank. Okay, ban yourselves. Chat, you're all on timeout. Initially deemed to be questionable after the second quarter exit, Etienne made it back into Monday's game. It is a foot sprain. Again, we're going to have to monitor this as the week goes on. That's the point of these early videos. We want to identify where the talent is and think about where we're going to go, but you don't have to make any decisions yet. Right now, Singletary is still the primary guy over Moss. There's been a lot of buzz for Moss this offseason, but Singletary has been the guy in with the first team. It's still a mess there. There's not that much touchdown upside for either of these guys. There's not volume upside. There's definitely not passing game upside. The Bills running backs are kind of a fade for me. And then we're just getting into the point where it's like, okay, I don't know. None of us know, right? We just don't. But the beautiful part about it is you don't have to. We're going to get into that wide receivers video in the next day or two. And with the quarterbacks video we've already done, and you see how much value there is in the mid-range, guys who are going to get 20 plus touches, have inclusion in the passing game, and get those inside the 5 carries, that like, you don't need to go all the way down here to the question mark, guys, to get the volume and the upside and the floor and the ceiling combinations that you need. Running back is an absolute cornucopia in week 1, and I hope that you guys can find the right ones for your process and your lineup. So till that next video, we'll catch you later. Bye. He's a legend.